Yo, what's up, everybody? Welcome to SWAT MMA. This is episode 164. I'm Jared here with Paul.
What up?
Coming to you from Las Vegas, Nevada. On today's show, man, we've been talking all about Max Holloway. We're going to talk some bit about Stipe versus Jon Jones because we got some news on that finally. We're going to take a look at the upcoming UFC fight night, Pavlovich versus Blaydes. We're going to talk some boxing today with some Diaz versus Paul. We got Tank Davis versus Ryan Garcia. Lots of fun stuff. Before we get to that, though, you know what time it is. Grab that stash. Fire it up. Let's get into the weed of the week.
Smoke weed every day.
So we have a couple strains, one old one, one new one. So this week we got the Mendo Breath coming at you. It's an indica strain made by crossing the OGKB with Mendo Montage.
Is that from Mendocino, California? Is that
It's gotta
we're getting name? I would think so. I like Mendo Breath, man. These buds on here are super tight. Like this nug is dense as fuck.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like these. It burns nice, man.
It says this is a real good one for people with insomnia.
Is there any weed that's not good for people with insomnia?
Yeah, good point, but sometimes it's a little bit better. It says it's also good for people with muscle spasms. So you're spasming, pick up some of this Mendo Breath.
Dude, I sometimes look, man, we're obviously big supporters of fucking legal cannabis here, medical cannabis.
Yeah.
Sometimes I cry bullshit on some of that stuff, though. Really, you gotta tell me that this particular strain, Mendo Breath, will help with my, what did it say? Leg cramps? But if
Spasms.
Leg spasms. But if I had, but this pink truffles that we got, other strain. Now, if I had some leg spasms and smoked the pink truffles, nah, nothing for you, homie.
It's gonna cause your spasms.
I mean, I realize there's different terpene profiles. Don't
Yeah.
get me wrong, but are you telling me they're that powerful? I just,
Not too sure. Yeah.
I mean,
I feel you.
I don't know. I'm not saying it doesn't. I believe it definitely has medical fucking value.
Oh yeah.
I mean,
That's undeniable. But I see what you're saying. Like the exact like pinpointed thing where it's like it's gonna help you with this is always kind of funny.
yeah, like I believe that definitely when it comes to like anxiety, like there's certain strains that the terpenes will definitely increase your anxiety levels. Like if you're
Yeah.
smoking weed and that makes you nervous, that particular strain, and it's the terpene profile inside of there. But outside of that, I don't really know. I mean, there's facts behind like, okay, if there's a lot of myrcene, that's going to give you that couch lock feeling. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? A lot of limonene, more sativa, that's going to give you, a little more active feelings. But I don't know when it gets down to these. If you have asthma, if you're suffering from depression, you smoke this one.
Yeah.
If your big toe hurts, then you want to smoke the diesel. But if it's your hand that's sore, well, then it's the fucking grape ape you want to hit.
yeah.
Like, I don't know, buddy.
Yeah, that is
Oh.
interesting.
I don't know. But you know what I did with this fucking bong right here? I took that Mendo Breath and I put a layer in the bottom, and then I took this giant pile of keef and I put it in the middle, and I put another layer of this Mendo Breath on top.
So we're gonna see if we're in a spasm or not.
Mm-hmm. I think we're going to be spasm free.
Spasm free day is always a good day.
Hey, you know who hooks up this weed of the week for us?
Who's that?
That's Binoid CBD, dude. Binoid CBD makes some pretty good CBD products. They also make a lot of Delta 9, Delta 8, Delta 10 THC products that are all derived from hemp that for the time being are legal in most of the states. Information's on their website. The best way, though, to find out their products is to go to our website, because if you click on the link that we give you there, you'll save a little bit of money and we'll earn a little something here on the podcast too. So you can help support us by doing that. There's also a link in the description, whether you're watching this on YouTube or if you're listening to the podcast on one of the various platforms. There should be links either way. SWATMMA.com though. But thanks to Binoid for hooking that up.
All right, so let's dive into it. So,
dude, before we dive into it, I want to dive into this bowl.
So last weekend we had a pretty good fight night card. Max Holloway versus Arnold Adams.
You know what I liked about this card? It was another one with the crowd. It was UFC Kansas City. It was down in Missouri. It was kind of cool. It was 6 years to the date. I always find it kind of funny when the UFC just happens to do things like that. I mean, to the very day, since they've been there last. which is kind of important for one fighter on the card, Zach Cummings, who retired, and he fought on that card. He's from there. He fought on that card 6 years ago, then gets to fight in front of his crowd again and retire. Interesting.
Said Arnold Adams. I meant Arnold Allen. I'm sorry.
Arnold Adams.
Mix it freaking BKFC and MMA.
Yeah. I knew it. I didn't even notice. Did you see Ed Herman retired too? There was a double retirement.
They literally was one of the more interesting retirement style, kind of nice. Because then we had Clay Guida later on in the card, kind of fake us out on the retirement thing, so he could say happy birthday to his mom, which I thought was pretty interesting.
Hasn't Clay Guida been in the UFC long enough? If he wants to say happy birthday to his fucking mama, they can just Joe Rogan can just give him a minute. I mean, hasn't he sacrificed enough, provided enough entertainment to be like happy birthday to my mama?
Yeah.
Even if he loses, I
Yeah.
mean, mama had to come watch him lose on the birthday. You gotta say happy birthday, mama. Dana's got to get all mad.
He got all mad about it, huh?
Dude, I don't even know who that was. When Clay Guida was walking out, I looked at the screen and I had it on mute. I was like, who is this young man I've never seen before?
With no hair.
No hair, his trimmed beard.
Yeah.
That's not the Carpenter.
No, yeah.
I was surprised.
Not look like him at all. And unfortunately, didn't fight like him either.
No, he's past his prime.
Tough fight.
A long time ago, but he's usually better than that.
Yeah. But I thought it was a pretty good card overall. We had that TKO from Jonathan Martinez as well off that flying knee, followed with a left and a right that were just freaking, it was devastating. Ends up getting a nice $50K bonus there. Also got to see Edson Barboza get back in the win column with a pretty nice knockout over Billy Quintela.
I swear to God, I don't know how I missed this fight last week. Like, look, Edson's been up and down lately.
Yeah.
But as soon as I saw this matchup, which for some reason I just missed it, or it didn't register with me, and then I saw the odds. It was not listening to the match, but the odds. It had, I think Barboza was like plus 250. I'd have bet that all fucking day, dude.
Well, I think it was Billy's coming off, 3 or 4 wins in a row, and then Edson's coming off some pretty shaky, back and forth in the win column. And I thought he came out and just looked like old school Edson Barboza. It was pretty great.
I don't know. Sometimes I get the feeling I was like, oh, Edson's going to knock this motherfucker out.
Yeah.
It was too late, though. I wouldn't bet nothing.
Yeah, of course.
He did good, though.
Yeah.
I know it sounds like bullshit. I'm like, oh, I knew that. But no, seriously, I was like, I saw it come out on the walkout. I was like, holy shit. Well, how did we miss this? I'd have bet that up.
And not only that, it's, he's kind of in that point in his career where a lot of the fights he's going to be in, he's always going to be a live dog, just because of his pedigree and where he's been in this sport. And I do think a lot of times he's put in these kind of fights where the winner is... he's not going to get as much shine for this just because of where he is historically. But had Billy beat him, I think it would have been a really good name to have on his resume. And
he was the only one with something to gain there.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, he got fucking flatlined.
Yeah, he did. Yeah.
Dude, it was like a fucking knee to a right hand. It was really nice.
Yeah.
Or was it the other one?
That was the other one.
Knees mixed up.
That was
the first one you mentioned. That was ridiculous.
Martinez was the knee.
Martinez.
Yeah. He's probably going to get a title shot after that. I mean, I know Pantoja and fucking the champ was announced not too long ago, but I imagine Martinez is going to be waiting in the wings for a title shot after that.
So. I would think.
So let's talk a bit about the main event.
We have Max, dude.
Max Holloway taking on Arnold Adams. God
damn,
Allen. Did it again. They just go together. So
they look a lot alike. Yeah. So it's it's easy to see why you get them mixed up.
Yeah. But Arnold Allen, there we go. Real top level featherweight bout. Max Holloway looked like old school Max Holloway all over again. I mean, I think he started real good, real quick. But I think what Allen did that a lot of guys have a hard time doing when it comes to fighting Max Holloway is was able to keep Holloway on his back foot a bit in that second and fifth round.
First 2 minutes of the second round, if he would have been able to stay as good as he fought those, he'd have won this handily.
Yeah.
Because he controlled the cage really well.
Mm-hmm.
Max was backing up, going sideways, and he cut him off on the sideways, and he was firing fucking shots. But then, it's Max Holloway.
Yeah.
And he's going to adapt. He's going to change.
Well, and everyone knew what this was going to be going in. We knew this was going to be a battle of strikers, a battle of two real polished 145ers. And I think that's exactly what we got. You know what I mean? It was a real competitive fight. I think, if anything, neither one of these guys' stock really dropped last night. I think it was really just a real good fight between two really good guys. Obviously, Allen's not going anywhere. Like this was kind of one of those fights that was going to be a ledger for him to begin with. You know what I mean? Everyone had seen what he did to Dan Hooker, and they'd seen his UFC career overall, and kind of saw
Big
where
winning
his
streak,
trajectory was. And I think that this fight just kind of keeps him exactly where he was at. He's a really really tough guy who could battle with the best of them on any night. Um, and then Max Holloway, I really, really don't know what to do with him at this point because, that chin held up. It had held up in the
He got
Volkanovski fight.
cracked,
It's held up in the Poirier fight. It held up in all these fights he's lost. And it's when you see those bad losses, you look at it and you go, okay, his next fight he's going to come out a bit slower. His next fight he's going to drop off. But then you see this fight like this, or you see the Cater fight, or you see, all these big fights he's had where you were just waiting for Max Holloway to fall off and kind of show some of that wear and tear from these wars he's been in, and it's just not there. It's just not there. This guy is still one of the best fighters in the world, and it kind of begs a few questions here because he's had 3 fights with the champion. We're not really seeing him sniff a fourth one anytime soon. 155, he's gone up and he's had some struggles though. You know what I
Because
mean?
he's skinny as a fucking rail to make 45. Like
Yep.
he's 5'11". He's almost 6 feet tall, and he's not. He's super lean. He has to do it like Dustin Poirier did it. Like Dustin Poirier is thick as fuck.
That's what I was
Poirier ain't
gonna say.
sniffing. If Poirier was going to change weight classes again, he'd be going to 70 way before he'd be going to 45 again because he's too fucking big now. He bulked up legit.
My question to you though, seeing Max's size, seeing Max as, just kind of the span of his UFC career and just genetics wise, I don't necessarily feel like he has the body style someone like a Dustin Poirier had that like puts on that weight like well. You know what I mean? Like I'm not saying Max is not an elite athlete because he is, but like he is a lankier guy, like just in general. And I just don't know how that size ends up on his body. You know what I mean? He seems like someone who has, he fights 145 for a reason. You know what I mean? Like it's not like he's probably cutting tons and tons and tons and tons and tons of weight, which
It's hard to say.
yeah,
he
like
stays in shape in between camps.
yeah.
But at some point, I think with all the shots that he's taken,
Mhm.
mixed with these weight cuts, they just get tougher as you get older.
Yeah.
And we've never heard anything about him, coming close to missing weight. And you're right, he is there because he can make it fine. But
Yeah, the only time ever was that Khabib fight, but that was never really his fight to begin
I think
with.
he should be at 55. I think he should take 6 months to 9 months off and focus on packing on some legitimate size. Not like when he fought Poirier last time when he just didn't cut weight and fought in the same size. He was still a 145 or he just came in at 155. Like he put it on legit and make a run up there because I think he could. I don't know what's left for him at 45 unless
My thing is though,
Rodriguez wins.
it's like at 55, you have 2 losses to Poirier. You've lost to McGregor. He has like weird fights with these like 55 guys who were originally 45 that are kind of in that upper echelon, and I don't really know what he does at that weight class. Like I think he's a world class fighter. Don't get me wrong. I think he's one of if not in the conversation of the greatest featherweight of all time. And like I just don't know how he translated at 155. Is my thing is I think his style is made for like a guy who is lankier, faster. Like,
well, and let's face it, he has some advantages at 45 because
Yeah.
he's got reach, he's
Absolutely.
got height on these smaller. Look at what a little Volkanovski is.
Yeah.
But it still doesn't guarantee him a win.
That's my thing is because him moving to 55, it's not like he's going to start from scratch. He's not going to go in there and fight some unranked 55er.
he'd get
He's
top
gonna,
10
yeah,
minimum,
he
top
right
5
away
most likely.
fighting, the Michael Chandlers, the Benil Dariush, Tzerkian, freaking all those guys up there at 55. Those are the guys he's going to go in right away and be in the mix of. And I just don't know how he fits there. I think being at 45 is kind of his spot, and I think he's kind of has to deal with
He's just gonna be
the
a gatekeeper for
results.
a hot minute,
Yeah,
unless
you know what I mean?
Volkanovski loses, which I just don't.
Or wins and goes to 55 permanently, which I don't see that either.
Well, either way, I'm concerned about his chin. Not that we've seen any signs of deterioration, but you know how it is. These guys, when they take a lot of shots like that, it's like the second they get knocked out one time, that's it. Look at Edgar. Look at, I mean, I think Frankie Edgar's a perfect example. He's the same weight class. He gets knocked out, Brian Ortega, and then that's it. He's getting knocked out frequently.
Yeah, he got knocked out.
It's
like 5 of his last
It's
6.
like there's no gradual decline. Like sometimes the heavyweight, it seems, can right that ship a bit. Like Alistair Overeem did, Andre Arlovski has. But I think that's something unique to heavyweight. I don't think these smaller guys, it's like once the chin's gone, it's gone, homie.
Yeah.
And I don't want to see that happen with Max. And it would suck if he moved up to 55 at the same time that coincided. He gets knocked out by somebody that's bigger and stronger, and then that's the end of his chin at the same time. That would suck.
I do think it is something of note. He said after the fight is there was really no talk that he was going to 55. You know, I saw actually that he said he wants to fight Korean Zombie because that's really the only one he hasn't fought.
It's a fun fight. I'd love to watch it.
And that's where I kind of feel like Max is going to end up being. It's just like he is a championship level guy who is always going to be seen that way. But I don't know. I feel like his days of being champion are past him.
Yeah, for sure. I agree.
You know, and that happens like to a lot of guys in the UFC. We've seen tons of guys who are fucking great competitors and some of the best guys in the world, but there's just sometimes one guy they can't get over. Look at someone like a Chad Mendes, just could never get past Aldo. Like, you know, Dustin Poirier just can never kind of get past that. But doesn't mean he's not like one of the most elite world class lightweights in the world. I think he is. But there's not for some reason, because there's also other great and talented people in the world. But there's just some people you can't beat. And sometimes you have to look that in the face and think, all right, well, what else can I do in my career that's going to still hold value?
Yeah, Max doesn't have anything left to prove as far as winning titles, so
Yeah.
he's probably got a lot of fun fights left while he's still elite. He'll fuck up Korean Zombie, but
Yeah, I think so too. Yeah, it'll be fun to watch though.
Well, post-fight, you know, we got Dana White taking questions, and he gave some news on a fight that we've been hearing about forever, but the heavyweight championship between Jon Jones, the new heavyweight king, and Stipe Miocic, the former.
Yeah.
And now they're talking about he thinks it's going to get done, and then he said MSG. Mm-hmm. Now, he didn't say a date here, though. However, there's a lot of speculation because traditionally the UFC goes to Madison Square Garden since New York opened up in the kind of November-ish. Late October, November timeframe, they start doing this type of shit.
Yeah.
So that's kind of what people are thinking now. It could be November, possibly. And that, of course, would be a home state fight for Jon Jones in a historic venue. Mm-hmm. And he put out a very interesting tweet. He said, wouldn't it be great, I'm paraphrasing here, to have my retirement fight be me beating the greatest heavyweight of all time, referencing Stipe. But you see, the word we're focused on here would be retirement.
Yeah.
So, two things. Before we talk about that, let's say this fight happens. How sick would that be? Stipe versus Jon, Madison Square Garden headliner.
I wanted an international fight week, but that's definitely off the table now because there's already been 2 title fights announced for that weekend.
I don't know what the holdup here is, but we do know that Stipe has been packing on size for quite some time.
Yeah, and so has Jon, and that's why I really don't know how I feel about that whole retirement thing because it's like, so you did all this work, and don't get me wrong, the objective was completed when he won the title, and then it would also be big when he inevitably, in my mind, beats Stipe, but I just kind of, something we've talked about in the past, I just don't see how he doesn't leave his stamp of dominance on the heavyweight division like he did the light heavyweight division.
I think he would want to try and beat Stipe's record,
Right.
too, wouldn't
Not
he?
only
Because it's
beat
only
Stipe,
3
but and
defenses,
the record.
so 4 fights.
Yeah, like the whole thing would be the record and beating the guy who held the record. Like that would just be, I feel like, so much bigger than just, yeah, I won the heavyweight title and then I beat
5.
Stipe when he was 40. Like
It would be 4 more fights for him at heavyweight to beat Stipe's record.
Yeah.
Because it's 3 defenses plus his title-winning effort.
Yeah.
So I think my opinion on it is that Jon is clearly at the tail end of his career here. I mean, he's 35 years old. We haven't seen any diminishing skills or anything like that, but he's not getting any younger.
Yeah.
And heavyweight, what do they always say? Anybody can get knocked out. And I think he was weighing risks and his legacy here. Does he want to keep fighting guys of much lower caliber than Stipe? No offense to the rest, but guys like Curtis Blaydes don't bring the resume that Stipe does.
Yeah.
Like him getting a win over Curtis, should Curtis be successful in his next fight, doesn't really do a whole lot for Jon's legacy like a Stipe Miocic fight does. Or let's say Sergey wins and he fights Sergey next. Is that really, people are like, oh shit. It does bring a lot of risk though. Is the potential risk of getting knocked out because it's heavyweight outweigh these legacy defining moments that he seems to be seeking?
It really depends on how much value he holds in that record, because we did see this in a very similar scenario when Daniel Cormier did it. Remember, Daniel Cormier was trying to do that when he took the Derek Lewis fight before he fought Stipe again, and everyone was like, "What are you doing?" And he's like, "I gotta stay active. I gotta do this. I gotta do that." And like, it's not like that Derek Lewis fight did so much for his resume, but then when him and Stipe fought, it was like, oh, here's DC, the heavyweight champion. He had beat Stipe. He's defended the title, and now it's time to see who's the greatest heavyweight of all time. And also, I do want to talk about another thing you said as well. Being 35, we have seen this kind of this era of older heavyweight champions in the UFC, and I think that Jon being 35 is not that big a
Not
thing.
in heavyweight. We've seen guys have success in the 40s.
Cormier was champ at 40. You know, Ngannou's what, fucking 50. You know what I mean? Like,
he's 36.
like yeah, 36. Yeah. Like, yeah, there's these guys. Yeah, and same thing with Stipe too. Stipe when he beat Daniel was what, 36, 37, something like that, right? Because he's 38 now, 39. And so I just don't really hold that much weight in his age.
It's true. He has a few years he could still stay very prime and athletic without diminishing results at heavyweight. I would agree.
Yeah.
That's why I tend to think it's more just the risks of heavyweight. I mean, fucking Stipe has got 2 wins over DC, and he also got knocked the fuck out by DC. You know, he was not on Jon Jones' resume, getting knocked the fuck out by anybody.
Yeah. Well, and then that also is another thing is he worried about that? Like, you know what I mean? Is he really worried about getting knocked out by someone like Sergey, who's lost to, you know, other fighters in the UFC who aren't even here anymore, or someone
not Pavlovich.
Yeah,
he's 17-1.
Yeah, but his only loss is to Alistair Overeem in 2018. Like, is he worried about a guy who Alistair Overeem was able to knock out, and his biggest win is probably against the 2 best fighters for his fighting style, or like someone like Curtis Blaydes, who has almost hit the mountaintop a couple times, but lost to guys who are of lesser talent because his chin hasn't always held up. And I just feel like, I don't know if Jon sees the risk that we're drawing out for him. You know what I mean? Like we do.
Yeah,
like,
we're just speculating. Clearly, we don't know what the man's thinking. But
yeah, but I just wouldn't view it with as much risk if I'm him, because it's just who really presents that big of a risk for a guy who as talented as Jones. Like, because Stipe is probably the biggest risk, I'd say, to losing for him, and probably for the rest of his career, outside of maybe like some way Francis Ngannou finds his way in.
Look at their shared opponent.
Yeah,
in DC.
like
look at. I mean, Stipe is good, man. He's underrated. Yeah. People don't give him sometimes the credit. I don't know why.
And even me saying Jon would easily beat Stipe is not a knock on Stipe. No, I'm just more saying Jon Jones is just one of those guys who's is an unbeatable force. Stipe is literally the greatest UFC heavyweight of all time, I think.
Yeah, I mean, people can argue about overall heavyweight because that brings a lot of others in there. But at the UFC, I don't see how you fucking deny it. I mean,
there's no one else.
Especially with the way he handled Cormier like that. I mean, the only other person we've seen do that to Daniel was fucking Jon.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
Another thing that Jones might be looking at, though, when it comes to the possibility of retiring, and then you look at whether you want that record that Stipe's got in this dominance factor, he might think that he gets enough of that shine by beating Stipe.
You think, yeah,
Stipe
maybe
had the record. Well, I kicked Stipe's ass, so he doesn't get all that shine. That remains Stipe's fucking flowers there, but it's kind of like, yeah, but I fucked up Stipe.
Yeah. And honestly, if he loses, I could see that as being Stipe's last fight too. It could be a double retirement too. You know what I mean? Because if Jon wins, there's nothing else to prove. But if you're Stipe and you've dropped 2 title fights in a row, you're 38 years old. Like, you're in a tough spot.
Especially when he's taken a lot of time to do the exact same thing that Jon Jones did.
Yeah.
He just didn't have as much weight to gain, which is bulk up. And it's been like, what, a year since Stipe's fought? He's been just putting on size.
Yeah.
I mean, Chris Weidman said like 3 months ago.
Was that only a year ago?
Like 260.
See, this whole UFC thing with Francis Ngannou has made me think it's been so long, but it really hasn't. It's been like a year and some days since he beat Stipe.
Yeah. Yeah, it's not been too long.
Yeah,
it just feels like a little drama.
Yeah, because all the drama for sure. Yeah, I don't know. I definitely want to see it. I definitely think, MSG November. That's something that will be marked on my calendar. Is get ready to watch.
Could you imagine if Jon Jones came out and handled him like he handled Cyril Gane? Like if he just came
I don't think there's any world where that happens.
I don't think so either. But I'm just saying, let's pretend there is for a second. Let's pretend he came out and Stipe looked as good as he always does, and Jon just was like, "Hold my beer," and fucked him up in 1 round or some shit.
Yeah.
Like just took him down, ground and pounded him out, and
then
we were just left in awe, dude. We're just left like, what the fuck?
He would not be able to retire after that.
Could you imagine?
Yeah.
Because I mean, I think Jon Jones beats Stipe as well, but I think it's gonna be a hell of a fight.
Yeah.
Hell of a fight.
Yeah, I don't think Jon just like wipes him out, but I think he beats him. I think Jon beats him in a very calculated, scored 5-round fight.
What if he fucking eye pokes Stipe?
And then KOs him? My phone will get blown up for 2 hours by you. That's what will happen. You'll be like, this is some fucking bullshit. This is why the UFC is fucking wasting time.
I would be pissed. I would be. I fucking would be.
But I do think that's the X factor in this fight, which I think is probably Jon's most underrated thing in his game. Is I think the place Jon beats Stipe is on the mat, and not just wrestling. I think his jiu-jitsu is ahead of Stipe's by miles, and I think that's kind of what the same thing we saw with Cyril Gane is. Jon knew going in that Cyril had no business with him on the ground. Stipe has good enough wrestling that where he's defensive and then against another striker can use it, but he does not have Jon Jones level.
Nobody like DC didn't have Jon Jones level wrestling.
Mm-hmm. And Jon Jones' MMA wrestling also is like fucking ridiculous.
That's the thing.
Yeah, so I think that it ends very similar to the Gane fight in some either a decision or inevitably a submission if it was a finish. I don't see Jon knocking Stipe out. That would be very surprising to me if that happened. But that being said, anything can happen in there. Oh yeah, if Stipe got knocked out by Jon Jones, I mean, what the fuck, dude?
Could you imagine if Stipe were to win? It's a fight, dude. Like,
yeah.
I mean, fucking Buster Douglas took out Tyson. Yeah. I mean, I'm not comparing Buster Douglas to fucking Stipe. Miocic, don't get me wrong. I'm just saying crazy shit happens.
Yeah.
So let's just play that card for a minute. Stipe beats Jon Jones, regains the fucking title. Does he retire with that shit, or do they book a fucking another Jon Jones fight?
I think that they would push for a second fight. It would also have to depend on how competitive it was.
I mean, would they push for a trilogy there?
Yeah,
because you would think that Jones would could likely win the rematch.
Yeah, it would make hella money. Do the same thing you do in DC. But the whole thing is getting Jon Jones and fucking Stipe to play ball for 3 straight fights with the UFC, who they kind of have had some tough conversations
with. Stick around after beating the fucking Wonder Kid.
Yeah,
I mean, how do you do better than that?
Yeah.
I mean, I guess you do better by beating him again, but I mean, do you really? You don't have to.
It's a lot of chips. You're pushing all the chips in at that point.
Yeah.
Yeah. For something that, yeah, no.
You know what I mean? I love Jon Jones. I'm like I'm
Yeah.
but I would be ecstatic if Stipe beat Jon Jones.
Yeah, I feel you. One thing we did not talk about in all this that I think is worth bringing up is, do you think that John's body is failing him?
You mean that Chael Sonnen shit?
No. I was talking about the fact that when he came out after the fight, said that he will never fight again if he can't tape his feet.
Oh,
He's had trouble.
Well, that
with,
is Chael Sonnen shit. There's different Chael Sonnen
Yeah.
shit. Like Chael's talking about him swimming and being
Yeah,
injured
yeah,
and all
no,
that.
that
that
shit
toe
I don't
thing-
really buy into as much. But the whole thing about his toes, he's had broken toes in the past when he
It's-
fought Chael.
You know, it's that thing that happened with Chael when his toe got caught in the cage like
Yeah,
that.
and he's
He won't-
had like
yeah.
weird shit happen with his feet in the past.
Yeah, actually, I
And
think
his
he
toes
would.
have always looked fucking gnarly.
I think he would tell them to fuck off if they wouldn't let him do that. I do. I don't think
Yeah.
he's lying. I think he values being able to walk properly. Like, people don't understand the value of your big toe.
Yeah.
I mean, you might just think it's, dude. No.
Yeah.
No, he would be permanently fucked up if he suffers more injuries to his big toe. Probably. I
Well,
would think that's bullshit.
I don't think it is either, and I think also he knows now that he's carrying that like much bigger weight on feet that are already fucked
Fuck
up.
yeah, dude.
Like it's not a good idea.
Mm-mm. Have you been hitting this ball?
No.
This
Do you
layers
think
of
that
keep-
contributed to why he took Gone down so quick too?
It might have fucked with his head, but no, because it's clearly something that he's like concerned with. But I think in the future they're just going to make absolutely goddamn sure with the commission and everybody else before it gets to the walkout that his toe is all right.
Well, and I don't understand why it's such a big deal too, because people come out with
That was
fucking
nonsense.
taped ankles all the time.
Yeah, that was.
Okay.
I thought it was nonsense. But I would guarantee that the UFC themselves are going to see to it wherever they are that there's no, because
New York's
you
shady though,
imagine-
commission wise, bro. New York commission and the UFC have battled since it's
yeah,
come in.
but imagine the hit the UFC would take if Jon Jones came out and then refused to fight over some tape on his toe like that because the UFC didn't think ahead to fucking make sure that tell the commission this dude's fighting with tape. Is that cool?
Yeah,
You know, and if not, we're gonna go to another state.
yeah, we've done it before.
But I mean, just imagine it. You know,
Yeah.
the whole thing falls through the pay per view.
Yeah,
Like, that'd be crazy.
it
Jon
would be
Jones,
nuts.
he did before. Remember, he wouldn't fight Chael. They had to move the whole thing, the whole fucking thing. Yeah,
You're talking about we fought
they
Gus.
canceled the
second time.
fucking. Remember, they canceled the fucking pay per view.
Yeah. Oh
all
yeah,
that
yeah,
shit.
yeah.
It's
When he was gonna
UFC
fight Dan
157.
Henderson, then he fought Chael instead. Yeah.
Anyways,
But
yeah,
yeah,
I think that's a real thing with his toe.
yeah.
But I don't think it's going to affect him in a fight. I think he just wants to make sure it's taped.
I feel it.
And I think he's dead serious with that threat that he won't fucking ever do that again if he can't tape it. Yeah. I think
Yeah.
that's legit as fuck. And like you just said, I don't see why it was a problem to begin with.
Mm-hmm. All right. Well,
there's a couple people connected to this fight, sort
Yeah.
of, because like Curtis Blaydes, in a sporting sense, probably should have had his title shot by now.
yeah.
I mean, you know, he's coming off 3 wins in a row, which at heavyweight is, you know, it's impressive.
And I think he's won like 7 of his last 8 or something like that.
Yeah,
he
he had
was
that
on a-
loss to Lewis.
Yeah, he had lost to Derek Lewis, but before that, I think he had won 3 or 4 in a row before that too.
Yeah. Well, he's fighting a monster in Sergey Pavlovich, who's 17-1,
Yeah.
who's got
His only loss coming in his first UFC fight, which was kind of like a flash TKO. But then since then, it's just gone on a fucking tear. I mean, outside of Abdul Rakhmanov, every single one of his last 5 opponents have not made it out of the first minute.
and they've all been fucking knockouts.
Yeah.
The last 5 in a row.
Yeah.
And he's blitzing people. Tuivasa blitzed him. Lewis blitzed him.
Yeah.
Like,
Maurice Green blitzed him.
this guy, his strikes landed per minute are 8 strikes per minute at heavyweight. That's
Yeah.
fucking. He's got an accuracy of over 50%, which is, hey,
To have 8 strikes landed per minute in an 18-fight career is pretty fucking nuts.
yeah, at heavyweight, yeah, it's one
'Cause,
thing if
like-
you're a fucking flyweight. It's another
Yeah,
thing
if
when
he
you're
was like
257 pounds.
If he was like 5-0 and it was in the UFC, I'd be like, yeah, those are some skewed stats. No, we're talking 18 fights into his career. He's still, landing 8 strikes per minute, over 50% ratio. Like that's fucking nuts.
And his takedown average over 15 minutes and 18 fights is 0.00.
Yeah.
He ain't trying to take
Naturally.
nobody down. He's trying to fuck you up with his fist. Now, he has been taken down, but he's still got a decent defense at 66%. Again,
Yeah.
over 18 fights, that's not bad.
Yeah, but against the guy he's fighting, we're gonna really see how good it is because Curtis Blaydes is an elite wrestler.
Yeah, absolutely.
Curtis, on the other hand, he lands about 3.54 strikes per minute. So, that's a little behind. So he's at kind of a 2-to-1, but he also is very accurate at 51%. And yeah, he averages.
See, let's talk about that. Let's put a pin in that real quick. Let's talk about this shit. There's I think a telling statistic here that swings a little bit of things into Curtis Blaydes' favor.
Yeah,
is that Sergey? Yes, he's landing 8 strikes per minute, but he's also absorbing a little over 4.
Yeah,
and his accuracy is only at 50%. So he's basically trading 4 shots and eating 4 shots.
Yeah,
at heavyweight.
Yeah,
dangerous game.
It can be.
You compare that to Curtis Blaydes, 3.5. He's only absorbing less than 2, 1.7.
Yeah,
but of course he's only really landing about 1.5 of those.
See, I think the real X factor in this fight is going to be takedown attempts, where you have Curtis Blaydes averaging 6.
I might be reading those stats wrong with my high ass.
What was that?
Well, it's showing he's landing 8 per minute, but his accuracy is 51%. So it might mean that he's throwing 16 per minute. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I think my high ass just read that stat wrong.
But still, even then,
the overall point, he's absorbing a lot more fucking strikes. He's throwing more and he's absorbing more. Is what my point was.
Yeah.
Which I think is a point in Curtis Blaydes' favor here, because Curtis does have heavy hands.
Yeah.
I mean, all heavyweights do.
But yeah. Going back to what I was saying before, I think his takedown average is really where it's going to come out, to play in here. Because per 15 minutes, he's averaging 6 takedown attempts. Like, that's pretty nuts.
Anyway now.
Yeah.
For that, he's a machine, but he's been susceptible to knockout artists before. Like he came out and tried to take Francis down and got knocked the fuck out.
Yeah. Twice.
So it's a very interesting matchup. It's a classic fucking striker versus wrestler. Who are you picking in this, and why?
I don't know who to pick in this, to be honest.
It's a tough one, dude.
It's tough because one thing I want to bring up for a second is Curtis Blaydes has a couple of wins that I don't really hold that well. The Tom Aspinall fight, like, you can say what you wanted to say, but that was an injury TKO. That wasn't really anything Curtis did. He fucking blew his knee out in the first 5 seconds of the fight and fell over and got TKO'd. Like,
that's a fight that looks good on paper when you see the name if you don't know shit about it.
Exactly. And Dawkins is tough, but he's not like the elite of the elite at heavyweight. But when you go over to Pavlovich, you got wins over guys like Derek Lewis, who fucking flatlined Curtis Blaydes. Like, flatlined him. And it's pretty tough to put Derek Lewis out. Doesn't happen all the time. And he was able to do that. And then he was also able to knock out Tai Tuivasa, which is really another tough guy. So I think Sergey's fucking power is going to be the difference here. I think he's going to end up winning this fight by knockout.
I have to go with it too, because I think you have to look at the Ngannou and Derek Lewis fights for Curtis Blaydes, which he was knocked out in both of those. And as much as I like the guy, you look at the surging. Sergey is surging.
Yeah.
So I'm with you. I think it's going to be a knockout win for Sergey, and he's going to be calling for title shots, which that would be, 6 in a row at heavyweight? Yeah, you should.
Something I just saw that I want to bring up real quick. His average fight time over 18 fights is 2 minutes and 15 seconds.
Yeah, Curtis
is fucking nuts.
9. Yeah, no, that's crazy.
That is nuts.
He's ending everything in average 2 minutes into the first round.
Right. That's fucking crazy.
Yeah, he's a fucking beast. 6'3", 257. He's a big heavyweight as well. 84-inch reach.
Yeah.
I mean, Curtis has an inch on him and a few pounds, but he's got that reach. Plus, it's southpaw versus orthodox, which I think plays into Sergey's favor as well.
Yeah, with that reach is also, makes it even. It's a longer reach and an odd look that he's not always getting.
Well, we're both picking him on this one.
All right, so let's move on from MMA for a little bit.
Yeah, we got some boxing this week.
Yeah, we definitely got some boxing going on this week.
Well, let's kind of blend MMA and boxing together here.
Yeah.
For this first one, because that's what it is, dude. We had the announcement that we all thought might be coming, which is Nate Diaz's first fight outside of the UFC.
Yeah.
What is it, Paul?
He's going to be taking on Jake Paul in a boxing match taking place at 185 pounds.
8 rounds, August 5th.
Yeah.
And we'll stress that number again, 185 pounds.
Yeah. One thing also I would like to bring up is, you said his first bout since the UFC. Nate has also come out since then and said after this bout, he will be returning to the UFC.
I saw that statement that was accompanying the fight announcement, and I have thoughts about that. And this ties into the first thought that ties into this is that this fight is being promoted as a co-promotion between MVP and Real Fight Inc., which is Nate Diaz's business. So first off, that's a very smart move on his part. They're pulling the Mayweather thing, okay, where he's got his own fight promotion and he's promoting himself, which is going to be a lot more money for Nate than if he was like Tyron Woodley fighting Jake Paul and just getting, here's your money.
Yeah.
Okay, so it's a whole different scenario when you're a co-promoter. So kudos to him for that. But also what that means is that Nate now has a PR team.
Yeah.
Okay. Nate Diaz, in my mind, did not write that fucking statement about how he was going to go back and get my UFC belts back too. I think my opinion on that is I think that was written by a PR person who is trying to find a way to remind everybody that Nate's in the UFC and he wants to put a good shine on it because Nate doesn't have no UFC belts. I fucking love Nate Diaz.
Yeah.
He does not have any belts in the UFC. I mean, what are we talking about here? I just think that was a PR statement that was put out that was like by a PR person that Nate wouldn't use in the real world or in MMA.
Yeah.
But it's different when the statement's put out by Real Fight Inc., which is a fucking business that has that person there. See what I'm saying? That's just my opinion. I don't know. I don't think he's going back to the UFC anytime soon. Maybe he is. But I think that this fight, though,
I don't think it makes any sense for Nate.
Kudos to Nate for getting paid and for making sure that he's getting paid as a co-promoter and not just getting a $500,000 check plus pay-per-view points or something.
Yeah. I feel like this fight's a bad fucking idea.
Why are we doing it at 185 pounds?
No. Would not happen.
I mean, Nate's detractors talk shit about him being at 170.
Yeah.
Even though anybody that's seen him in person, we both have since, he had that move later in his career. Not the early career 170, when he was just a 55er not cutting weight. The late career 170, when he was a bigger, older man who had filled out. 15 pounds on top of that shit.
Here's my problem,
Nate at
too.
middleweight?
Nate is too hittable. He's just too hittable. He's too hittable for this. I don't want to see this. I don't want to see him. If he gets knocked out by Jake Paul, dude, I would literally be so upset. Or just gets stopped by Jake Paul, by a doctor or something, because he's busted up. I will fucking.
That's the problem. He bleeds a lot.
He bleeds a lot. He's hittable. He's just, he's tough. That's the difference.
I'm hoping the hitability factor drops a little bit because it's boxing and it's not MMA.
Yeah.
People talk all this shit about his boxing, but he hasn't been boxing, and it's not when you're in there. You have to look for different things. You can't be focused on the hands.
Yeah.
You have to be focused on takedowns and the legs and the hips and all this other shit. So you're going to get smacked more with the fists because you can't just look at the fucking triangle where you look at in boxing, okay?
Yeah.
So I'm thinking that'll cut down a little bit because he's only got to focus on Jake Paul's hands here. However, to flip the coin, Jake Paul is doing the same shit we've seen him do repeatedly. He's taking on a 40-year-old over-the-hill non-boxer former MMA fighter.
Mm-hmm. Same old shit.
I mean, I have hope because Nate is a different breed. He's not Tyron Woodley. He has been training with Andre Ward for years. We've heard a lot about his boxing. We've never seen it. We've seen glimpses of what his boxing might look like in his UFC fights.
Yeah.
But that's not Nate in boxing gloves boxing. We don't fucking know.
Yeah.
He could be the shit, dog. He could come out and box Jake Paul the fuck up.
Yeah, and I hope
he could be better than Tommy Fury.
Yeah. My thing is,
yeah.
My thing is when you look at this also is there's one way for Nate to win and there's only one way for Jake to win, because I think like the whole thing with Nate Diaz and his fighting style and how he's always fought in the UFC is he's going to attempt to put a pace on Jake that he's never felt before. He's going to attempt to just like pepper him up for fucking 8 rounds.
And he could do it.
And he could do it, but I just don't think he necessarily has like the power to knock Jake out. Like I don't know. I see this ending in a decision and ending in a way where like people are like, man, this is just kind of a waste of time. Like what are we doing? Like that's just kind of how I view this fight. It's this is just a waste of time because on one side, if Jake wins, it's what you said. You know, it's another guy who was never a boxer to begin with, who is going to look sloppy at times because he's never been a boxer.
And who's considerably older than Jake.
He's going to be considerably, possibly out of shape not out of shape, but he does, no. Listen to what I'm saying. Not out of shape, but in a shape that fighting at a weight he's just not supposed to be fighting at.
He's just business being at 85.
But that there's undeniable things that come with that we've seen over the history of fighting. When you are fighting in a weight class, one, that you're not supposed to be in, but two, that your body's not naturally fighting at, things like fatigue set in quicker. Things like, just carrying that weight and feeling those kind of punches sometimes just like changes how you approach the fight. Well, of course, we've never seen Nate fucking knocked out by someone who's 155 or 170 pounds, but we've never seen him fight someone who's 185 pounds. What if he just can handle those, big punches from those smaller guys? But not to say Jake's the greatest boxer, but he's a fucking legit athlete. And when you're an athlete like that, there's a certain level of explosion, and like you see it when Jake fights. The reason Jake is where he is right now is because his athleticism and his attributes helping him become a boxer. His speed, athleticism, and power have helped him kind of jump the ladders, not only with his celebrity status, but with his actual boxing prowess.
And clever fight selection.
Yeah, not only that, but when you watch him fight, yeah, he's a novice level boxer, or a what people would call a club fighter, pretty much. And there's nothing wrong with that.
Well, that's where he should be. And if you look at his training, how long he's been in the game, and what he's been doing, he's supposed to be a novice boxer.
Yeah. But I do think what's put him ahead outside of his celebrity is that dude's got some serious power. Like, it's undeniable. He has power.
He can punch somebody.
Yeah. And I've never seen Nate fight someone who's 185 pounds who has some power. You know what I mean? And that's dangerous because I've seen Nate get fucking cracked by some people like we'll use Conor McGregor for an example. Conor McGregor was not a 170 pounder. Like he was not the same frame that he has now filled out at back when he fought Nate. Remember the first time he fought Nate? When he was fucking joking around, smacking his stomach like, yeah, I'm fucking training, eating steaks every day. Yeah. Like, bro, there is ways in which this fight could be very bad for Nate Diaz if he approaches it in that direction, where he's just going to do what he normally does and come in at whatever fucking weight I'm at. Like, and that's kind of where I feel like Nate is going to be mentally, because he's just doesn't even think him and Jake are in the right universe. Like, you know what I mean? Fighting wise.
Well, I see what you're saying. And the more I'm listening to it,
just sets Nate's
I'm just flashing back. You mentioned Conor. I'm just flashing back to Nate on that fucking microphone. Nate getting a call when he was on the fucking boat in Mexico drinking a fucking margarita to fight Conor McGregor, and then getting on the mic saying, I'm not surprised, motherfuckers. I could see him. Nate's big on reputation.
Yeah, I
Like,
agree.
there's a lot of value here if he were to beat Jake Paul. Like, but it boils down to this, dude. I'm gonna root for Nate here, and I'm gonna root
I'm
for
gonna
him
root
based
for him.
on the fact that I think he's gonna win. I'm just gonna say that, even though it doesn't make sense really. But because I don't believe that they've been lying about his boxing all these years. And again, I don't mean what we've seen in the cage. I mean what he's doing with Cesar Gracie and his boxing trainers and the shit in the gym, training with Andre Ward, the shit we've never seen that he's been doing for longer than Jake Paul has.
I agree. That's a good point.
And if that's not bullshit, then he shouldn't be a novice boxer, despite his record.
Mm-hmm. I agree. That makes sense to me.
And if that shit's real, he should go out and be at least as good as Tommy Fury. And if he's better than Tommy Fury, he should piece up Jake Paul.
Yeah.
If he's not, if it's all been bullshit,
we gotta see.
Then we'll see, because Paul will fucking box him up.
Yeah.
And if that happens, I'm gonna be embarrassed because the Nate Diaz brand will take a fucking hit. But I just don't believe it. Nate doesn't bullshit. Does Nate? I mean, he bullshits in the way all fighters bullshit. He's like, I didn't really lose that fight. You know, I've never lost a fight. Whatever. But I mean, when he's his training, his other shit, does he represents, right?
Yeah.
Like, he's about that shit. Like, we're joking a little bit, maybe not out of shape. I know what you're saying, but I mean, the man does triathlons in his off time.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah,
we'll see.
I'm gonna, because like training is like a lifestyle for him, and that's why I feel like I get what you're saying more, that like the Nate Diaz idea of, like, you know, the fucking Diaz army. Like, it doesn't matter if we're fighting or not, we're drinking, and then we're fucking doing jujitsu in the hotel room. You know what I mean? Like, that's kind of always been their lifestyle. I just feel like this is just all the other Jake Paul fights. Just all the chips are stacked on Jake's side, and then everyone else is just like, oh, what if Jake beats Nate Diaz? It's like, well, it's gonna mean just the same thing it meant when he beat Tyron Woodley and he beat Ben Askren and he beat fucking Anderson Silva. Nothing, because what happened when he fought someone who was of any kind of actual like boxing level, he was defeated.
It'll mean that all that boxing we've heard about from Nate really wasn't nothing.
Yeah, it wasn't nothing, and then on Jake's side, he's in the same place he was at. Well, let's get to some real boxing, yeah? Coming up this weekend, this is a real big fight. Big fight that we've been waiting for a while now.
This fight is so big, it doesn't even have any actual stakes attached to it as far as titles and the win-loss record.
Yes,
I mean, there's no title, but it's huge. It's probably the biggest fight all year. I mean, unless we wind up getting Miocic versus Fury, this is it right here. Yeah.
So we got Gervanta Davis taking on Ryan Garcia. And this is a very, very interesting matchup because this is going to be speed versus power.
Catch rate at 136 for this one.
Mm-hmm. This is really, really going to be interesting for me because, first of all, I'll just give you my take on Garcia. I think he is elite, like one of the most elite guys at, you know, I feel like a lot of those guys, like a lightweight, they all kind of bounce around to like super lightweight and, you know, all those smaller weight classes. Garcia is a fucking tough out though. He hits with such devastating body shots. It's so quick where you just don't see him. And I don't really think we've ever seen Tank really tested in that way. You know what I mean? He's fought some elite of the elite.
I mean, Tank's had 3 legit world titles.
Yeah.
Whereas Garcia's not had that experience. He's got the
interim.
I agree. But
I think the difference is, though, also in there, that one thing that we've seen in Tank Davis's fights a lot is he tends to let his opponent draw out what their game plan is in front of him, and then he's like, all right, I'm going to beat you this way. And I feel like if he does that with Ryan Garcia, he can find himself down quick and not like out, but I'm saying like down on the scorecards quick, and Garcia being able to weather the storm and win. Because we've seen it. Like, you know, even it was weird. He let fucking Rolly beat him for 2 rounds for no exact reason and then just knocked him out cold. You know what I mean? Like, if you go in there against Ryan and you let him get 3-4 rounds on you, and then if you're at a very similar skill level, you get deep into the fight, that's a dangerous place to be. That's kind of what we saw when Lomachenko lost to Teofimo Lopez. Like, there's these guys kind of that are just so skilled that they they try to wait out their opponent, and I feel like this is the wrong guy to try to wait out. If I'm Tank Davis, like he needs to go out there and try to put Ryan out immediately.
Well, I think he'll definitely try and do that. But I mean, Garcia packs a lot of power too, and he does have that speed. Sorry, everybody. My crazy cat came out and was like standing straight up. It was bizarre, just out of the blue. He does have that speed, you know. I don't know. I think Davis is a little bit more advanced than a lot of people might think because he has so much power. You know, he does do his best work coming forward, but he doesn't just go in crazy. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
He's pretty patient. You know, he does a lot of body work, and then he kind of works his way up. And I think the height difference here is going to play into that a bit. Because while Garcia's taller, he's not really known for fighting at a distance and keeping a shorter guy off of him, you know.
Yeah. This is definitely the biggest test of Garcia's career, without a doubt.
A lot of bragging rights here.
Yeah. This is a fight that's kind of been in the making for like almost 2 years now. You know, kind of coming up, it was always one thing that Garcia was always talking about. Like, I'll fight Tank Davis tomorrow.
You know, you mentioned that Tank might come out and try to put him away early. However, like with his title fights, you know, it's usually the 6th round or later on most of them. Like I think it's 6 out of 8 of his title fight KOs were after the 6th round because he does work that body.
Yeah,
he works that body and just kind of goes up, which is when you have power like he does. Those body shots, dog, and he's short, you know, he can get on the inside and work that shit. I think that's what he's going to do to Garcia. I think he's going to get inside, he's going to work the fucking body bad, and then he's going to knock him out.
But that's kind of Garcia's thing too, though. Garcia's thing is going to the body and just debilitating people to the body also. Like, it's very interesting because, like, they're very, like, similar in their work. Like they're both like two guys who go out and pretty much dismantle their opponent from going top to bottom. And I think
I mean he can definitely crack. I mean Garcia stopped with 19 to 23 opponents.
Yeah.
And Davis 26 to 28. So this ain't going the distance. But.
No way. But maybe that is why it goes the distance, because both guys get a little too respectful of each other.
I mean, Garcia has the height, the reach. He's really accurate. He's got a lot of speed.
Yeah,
you know.
Speed.
He's got a lot of speed. He can put a lot of shots together.
Yeah,
got nice left hooks. You know, he's got a nice lead left hook with right-handed stance, which is unusual, you know, traditionally, but it's fucking sharp.
Yeah,
but I don't know, dude. Tank is. I'm just feeling Tank Davis here. I'm just feeling it. I'm feeling it.
It'll be a big moment if Tank wins this fight for sure.
Because it's just that speed. I mean, the speed he's got that is going to help a lot, but Davis got that southpaw advantage coming in. And I'm expecting a good fight, but honestly, I think that we're going to wind up with a Davis KO.
I think Garcia knocks him out.
That would be shocking to me.
With a body shot.
Either one. I mean, we're two undefeated fighters, I think.
Someone's got to lose.
It's like 51 fights, 45 KOs between the two of them. Yeah. Don't quote me on that. I'm just trying to think in my head real quick. But, I mean, yeah.
Yeah.
I'm picking Tank. Well, I'm picking Tank round 7. I'm picking a Tank Davis TKO round 7.
Garcia by TKO body shot round 5.
Round 5. All right.
I think he just comes out and just goes to the body all day long. All day long.
Think he can get inside a little 5.5 foot?
I think he's too fast not to. I think his speed is how he's going to get in. Because I feel like
uppercut though. Remember that uppercut he laid old boy out with?
Santa Cruz was
that uppercut was one of the sickest uppercuts I've seen in my life. He could fucking Garcia could be trying to get inside and then eat that uppercut and be out.
Think about that body shot that fucking Garcia hit Luke Campbell with that fucking folded him too. You know what I mean? Like they're two guys that have like some serious highlights that were fucking make them just two of the best guys in the world. And I think this is just gonna be one of like you said, I think this is the fight of the year. And whoever wins is holding all the marbles and is looking at everyone else like the guy, even though there's really no fucking belt attached to this. You know, there's no belt attached to this, but I feel like winning this fight is bigger than winning any belt for either guy.
Well, DraftKings right now has Gervanta Davis at minus 270, and Ryan Garcia is a fucking plus 205 underdog.
I'll take that right now.
I mean, I was gonna say if you're feeling Garcia for real, dude, a plus 205 is a nice bet right there.
I'll go take that right now.
I mean, I would actually bet that too, even though I'm picking Tank. But those odds, I'm like, well, it's hard to.
That fight's a coin flip to me. I don't know what they're watching.
Yeah, when you're getting a payday
Watch
like
Ryan
that.
Garcia just get murdered.
For those of you listening who may not be familiar with Vegas odds, you might not bet fights. The way that means is you would have to bet to bet Gervonta Davis at minus 270. You would need to bet $270 in order to win 100. Okay, for Garcia though, you can bet 100 and win 205. So you can turn $100 into $305 with that bet. Or you can turn 270 into 370.
Whack, who does that?
Yeah, I never take that first bet. I'm always betting the underdog. I just wait for ones that are juicy, like the aforementioned Cyril Gane versus Jon Jones fight, which we both earned a nice payday off that because the odds were wacky against a submission. I mean, just what the fuck were they thinking?
Yeah, that's great.
I wonder what it is for Davis by KO. Let's see. I mean, not Davis, Garcia. I mean, you might be able to get a nice prop bet on that.
I think it's probably not going to be that big because it'll probably be around what it was for him to win. Because no one thinks he's going to win.
All right, well, I'm looking forward to it, man. I'm going to order that pay-per-view too.
Yeah, me too.
That should be dope.
Word, well, I think that about wraps up the show for today.
Yeah, thanks for tuning in and hanging out with us, everybody. Thanks to Binoid for sponsoring the Weed of the Week. Remind everybody again, you can get the best deals on Binoid products if you go to our website, click on the Cool Stuff button, and then follow the links from there, and you'll get yourself a nice 15% discount, and you'll help the podcast out as well. There's some other information located where?
SWATMA.com, or you can head over there, click the gear button, buy a t-shirt and support the podcast, then head over to Instagram and follow us at SWAT MMA Podcast.
Peace.
Peace.